The blackout was over. The students were safe. Life on campus slowly returned to normal. But for Jason and Carell, nothing would ever be the same again. The alien had come to Earth with a mission: to study humanity. What he found was more than data, more than statistics. He found a story worth telling. And now, he would have to report it. The summons one chilly evening, Carell received a message on his wrist communicator. The glowing symbol of the Trivaxian High Council pulsed on the screen. Jason leaned over. "That looks important." Carell's mandibles clicked.
"It is. They are calling me to present my findings."
"Everything I have seen, everything I have learned, it must be shared." Jason frowned. "Wait, you mean you're leaving?" "Not forever," Carell said calmly. "But I must attend the council session. They demand a live report." Jason sat back on the couch, silent. He had known this day would come, but he wasn't ready for it. Carell wasn't just a roommate anymore. He was a friend. "When do you leave?" Jason asked quietly. Carell's glowing eyes softened. "Tomorrow. The departure." The next morning, Carell and Jason walked to the edge of the frozen lake on campus. A small, sleek craft shimmered into view, its cloaking field dropping like a curtain. Jason's jaw dropped. "That's your ride? It looks like a giant silver teardrop." Carell tilted his head. "Efficient design. Unlike your combustion vehicles, it wastes no energy." Jason smirked. Always judging. Carell placed a heavy claw on Jason's shoulder. "Jason Carter, our time together has shown me more than I expected. You are not just a subject of study, you are proof of humanity's strength." Jason tried to laugh, but his throat tightened. "Just don't forget us, all right?" Carell's mandibles twitched in what Jason now knew was his smile. "Forget you? Impossible." With that, the alien stepped into the craft, which hummed softly and rose into the sky. Jason stood on the shore, watching until it vanished among the clouds. The council chamber far above Earth, on a massive orbiting station, Carell entered the Grand Council chamber. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of alien worlds. Their voices buzzed, their eyes and antennae turning toward the lone Trivaxian stepping into the center. "Carell of Trivax," intoned the high speaker, a tall figure draped in ceremonial cloth. "You have lived among the humans. You have studied their ways. Report your findings." Carell bowed his head. "Yes, honored council." The chamber grew silent. All waited to hear his words. The report begins. "I arrived on Earth to study humans as specimens," Carell began. His deep voice carried through the chamber. "I believed they were fragile, reckless, and primitive. I believed their strength was an illusion." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many council members nodded, agreeing with the assumption. "But I was wrong," Carell continued firmly. "Humans are fragile, yes. Their bodies are weak compared to ours. Their technology is limited. Their lifespans are short. And yet," he paused, his glowing eyes scanning the crowd, "they survive. Not because of strength of body, not because of long lifespans. They survive because of something greater: adaptability." The murmurs grew louder. Some alien delegates looked confused. Others leaned forward with curiosity. Lessons from a roommate. Carell lifted his claws. "I lived with one human, Jason Carter. He was my roommate, my teacher, though he never realized it. From him I learned the secret of humanity's survival," a council member hissed. "What secret?" Carell's mandibles twitched. "Humans breed strength from chaos. They take fear and turn it into courage. They take weakness and turn it into unity. When disaster strikes, they do not wait for orders, they act. They adapt." He recounted the night of the blackout, describing how Jason had calmed panicked students, organized groups, and led them through danger. He described how humans combined their small efforts with his strength to rescue the trapped. Alone, none of them could have survived. Together, guided by one human's will to adapt, they saved each other. The chamber was silent now, every delegate listening closely. The challenge, but not everyone was convinced. A reptilian delegate hissed loudly. "So they can panic in the dark and cling together for warmth. That is not greatness. That is desperation." Another delegate with crystalline skin spoke coldly. "Humans are still reckless. Their wars burn worlds. Their greed poisons their home. Why call this strength?" Carell's claws tapped the floor as he stood tall. "Because despite their flaws, they endure. They are reckless, yes, but they learn. They destroy, yes, but they rebuild. Again and again they rise from ashes that would bury other species forever. That, council members, is strength. His glowing eyes flared. Humans are not perfect, but their imperfection is the very reason they grow. The vote. The High Speaker raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Karel of Trivax, your testimony is unusual. You ask us to see strength where others see weakness. You claim humans are worth recognition. Shall we put it to a vote? Whispers filled the chamber. Some were skeptical. Others were intrigued. Finally, the vote was called. Glowing symbols appeared in the air as delegates cast their decisions. One by one, the votes tallied. Green for agreement, red for rejection. The result glowed across the chamber, majority green. The High Speaker's voice echoed. The Council accepts your findings. Humans shall be recognized as a species of resilience and adaptability. Karel bowed his head, relief flooding his chest. He had done it. Humanity's story would not be ignored. Returned to Earth days later, Karel's craft returned to the frozen lake. Jason was waiting, bundled in his coat, blowing into his hands for warmth. The craft landed and Karel stepped out, his towering frame casting a long shadow. Jason grinned. So did you tell them I'm the smartest human alive? Karel tilted his head. I told them you are proof of humanity's greatest strength, Jason laughed. Close enough. The two walked back toward campus side by side, a new understanding. That evening, back in their apartment, Karel opened his notebook. He no longer wrote simple observations. Instead, his words carried a new weight. Humans are not defined by their fragility. They are defined by their refusal to accept it. They adapt. They endure. They transform weakness into survival, and survival into progress. Their strength is not born in their bodies, but in their will. This is the lesson humanity offers the stars. Jason glanced over his shoulder. You writing about me again? Karel's mandibles twitched. About you and about all humans. But mostly, yes, you, Jason smirked. Figures. The future weeks passed, and life settled into its strange new normal. Jason went back to his classes. Karel continued his research, but now it felt less like a study and more like a partnership. One evening, as they sat playing a strategy game, Jason asked, So, what happens next? Are more aliens going to come here? Karel's eyes glowed softly. Yes, and when they do, they will not see humans as weak. They will see them as survivors. And perhaps as teachers. Jason raised an eyebrow. Teachers, us? Karel nodded slowly. Yes, because you taught me what no textbook could. That survival is not about power. It is about adaptation, and that lesson may save more than just humanity. It may save us all. Jason leaned back with a proud grin. Well, guess we're not so primitive after all. Karel's mandibles twitched again in that strange alien smile. No, Jason Carter, you are not primitive. You are human. And that is enough. Closing scene that night as snow fell outside their window, Jason and Karel sat in quiet companionship, one human, one alien, sharing a small apartment on a distant planet of endless possibility. Two worlds, once strangers, now bound together by a simple truth. Humans endure. Humans adapt. Humans survive. And that, Karel knew, was the greatest lesson the galaxy would ever learn. For weeks, Jason and Karel had been adjusting to their unusual life together. What began as a research project had grown into something bigger, a strange friendship built on late-night games, shared meals, and endless questions. But life has a way of testing lessons at the worst possible time. And for Jason and Karel, that test came one cold evening in early winter. The blackout had started like any other night. Jason was in the engineering building, finishing a group project with his classmates. Karel had joined them, sitting at a table with his notebooks, carefully observing the humans' work. The building was buzzing with activity. Students moved between rooms, printers whirred, and vending machines hummed in the background. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily through the dark sky. Then, without warning, the lights flickered. At first, nobody paid attention. Old campus buildings always had wiring issues. But then the lights went out completely. The humming stopped. The entire building sank into sudden, heavy silence. A moment later, the emergency alarms began to wail. Jason looked around nervously. That doesn't sound normal. A student near the window gasped. The doors, they're locked. The power's dead. Jason rushed to the hallway. Dozens of students were gathered near the exits, tugging at the electronic locks which refused to budge. The emergency lights weren't working either. The entire building was plunged into darkness, broken only by the glow of phones and wristbands. Someone shouted, "We're trapped!" Panic rippled through the crowd. Human instincts. Jason's heart pounded, but he forced himself to breathe. He had seen panic before, during fire drills, during storms, and he knew one thing. Panic made everything worse. "Everyone, calm down," Jason shouted. "We'll figure this out." Some students turned to him, but their fear was growing. The temperature inside the building was dropping quickly without power, and people were shivering. Jason glanced at Karel, who stood tall and calm in the chaos. The alien's eyes glowed faintly, cutting through the dark. "Karel," Jason whispered, "we need to do something fast." Karel tilted his head. "Yes, but how?" Jason swallowed. "Humans don't wait for perfect solutions. We adapt, we improvise. Remember?" Karel's mandibles clicked softly. He nodded. "Then let us adapt." Taking charge, Jason climbed onto a chair. "Listen up, everyone. We're not going to freeze in here. First step, phones and wristbands out. We'll use them for light. Second, nobody panics. If we work together, we'll get through this." A few students nodded nervously, following his instructions. Soon dozens of small screens lit up the hallway, casting faint blue light. Karel's voice rumbled behind Jason. "The building is large. We must organize groups. Some search for supplies, others check every floor for trapped students. Division of labor increases survival chance." The students looked at the towering alien wide-eyed, but the calm authority in his voice reassured them. Jason grinned. "You heard him. Let's split up." They formed small teams. Jason took charge of one, while Karel led another. The students who had been panicking minutes earlier now had something to do, and the energy shifted from fear to determination. The blocked stairwell, Jason's team headed toward the lower level, where they found their first real problem. Part of the stairwell had collapsed. Chunks of ceiling and heavy concrete blocked the way. Behind the rubble, faint voices could be heard. "Help! We're stuck!" Jason's stomach clenched. "There are people down there!" Students tugged at the debris, but it was too heavy. Jason pushed with all his strength, but the slabs wouldn't budge an inch. Then Karel arrived with his group. Without hesitation, the alien crouched down, digging his claws into the rubble, his armored body tensed, glowing eyes narrowing. With a loud crack, he lifted a massive piece of concrete and tossed it aside like it was nothing. The students gasped in shock. "Assist me," Karel commanded. Jason and the others quickly moved in, clearing the smaller debris as Karel handled the largest chunks. Within minutes, they had opened a narrow path. Shivering students crawled out from the trapped lower level, their faces pale with relief. Jason pulled one of them up. "You're safe now. Stick with the group." Karel looked at Jason. "Teamwork, human strength multiplied." Jason nodded, breathing hard. "Exactly." Cold and fear hours dragged by. The blackout continued, and no rescue had arrived yet. The building grew colder, and students huddled together in classrooms, using coats and spare blankets to stay warm. Jason moved from group to group, checking on people, offering encouragement. Karel did the same, though in his own way. Instead of soft words, he spoke with calm logic. "Your fear is natural," he told a group of frightened freshmen, "but fear is wasted energy. Breathe, focus, survive. You are stronger than you believe." Somehow, hearing it from a massive insectoid alien made it more convincing. At one point, Jason found Karel standing near a window, staring out at the snowy campus. His voice was low. "On Trivax, in such a crisis, my people would wait. We would follow protocol until rescue arrived. Many would die." Jason frowned. "And you think we're doing it better?" Karel turned to him, eyes glowing. "Yes, humans do not wait. You act, you adapt. Already lives have been saved because you refuse to stand still." Jason shrugged. "We don't always get it right, but doing something is better than nothing." Karel's mandibles twitched. "This is the strength I came to learn." The final push, just before dawn, a new danger arose. The backup generator, which had been struggling to power the security system, failed completely. The locks on the doors were now fused shut, trapping everyone inside. "We're running out of time," Jason muttered. "People can't stay in this cold much longer." Karel studied the doors, then crouched down. "Stand back," Jason blinked. "Wait, you're not—" Before he could finish, Karel drove his claws into the metal frame. Sparks flew as he pulled with incredible force. The steel groaned, bent, and finally ripped free with a deafening crash. The doors burst open, letting in a blast of freezing air, but also freedom. Cheers erupted from the students. Some cried, others hugged each other. They poured out of the building, heading toward safety. Jason clapped Carol on the shoulder. "You just saved everyone." Carell tilted his head. "No, we saved everyone. Human adaptability and Trivaxian strength. Together." The aftermath. By sunrise, emergency crews arrived. They quickly took over, wrapping students in blankets and leading them to heated vehicles. The crisis was over, but the story was only beginning. Reporters swarmed the scene, eager to capture the moment. Cameras focused on Carell, the towering alien who had ripped open the doors and carried students to safety. When asked what happened, Carell spoke in his deep, steady voice. "I did what my human roommate taught me. I adapted. I bred courage from chaos." Jason stood beside him, too tired to speak but proud beyond words. A quiet moment. Later that night, back in their apartment, Jason and Carell sat in silence. Jason nursed a cup of hot chocolate while Carell scribbled notes in his ever-growing stack of notebooks. Finally, Carell set down his pen. "Jason Carter, today I saw the truth. Humans do not wait for strength to be given. You create it. You breed it. Not in your bodies, but in your choices, and because of that you survive where others would fail." Jason smiled faintly. "Guess you're starting to sound human yourself." Carell's mandibles twitched in what Jason now recognized as a smile. "Perhaps. But maybe that is not a weakness. Maybe that is an evolution." Jason raised his mug. "To adapting." Carell lifted his claw in return. "To adapting." And for the first time, Jason realized that his alien roommate wasn't just learning about humanity. He was becoming part of it. By the third week of living together, Jason realized something unusual. Carell was no longer just a guest in his apartment. He had become part of Jason's daily routine, like the squeaky kitchen light or the constant hum of the refrigerator. But unlike the furniture, Carell was learning, adapting, and changing, sometimes in ways Jason couldn't believe. Carell had accepted Jason's challenge to live like a human, and he was taking it more seriously than Jason ever expected. The alien didn't just copy human habits. He analyzed them, tested them, and sometimes improved on them in ways that left Jason speechless. Morning struggles. It began with mornings. Jason hated waking up early. His alarm clock usually rang 3 times before he dragged himself out of bed, hair sticking out in every direction. But one morning he stumbled into the kitchen to find Carell already there, standing perfectly straight watching a kettle boil. "You're up early," Jason mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "Humans begin the day with caffeine," Carell said, holding up a steaming cup of coffee. His claws looked awkward around the mug, but he didn't spill a drop. "I have prepared it," Jason blinked. "You made me coffee?" "Yes, it is part of human bonding. I read this in 3 separate articles." Jason took the mug, smiling despite himself. "Huh, you're not wrong." Carell, however, took a sip of his own coffee and nearly choked. His mandibles clicked rapidly as his glowing eyes widened. Bitter, acidic, unpleasant. Jason laughed so hard he almost spilled his drink. "Yeah, that's coffee. You'll get used to it." Carell shook his head. "Humans willingly drink this every morning? Truly, you are a resilient species." The pizza incident food continued to be an adventure. Jason decided to introduce Carell to pizza, his favorite late-night meal. They ordered a large one with extra cheese and pepperoni. When it arrived, Carell sniffed it cautiously, then took a small bite. His mandibles twitched. His glowing eyes brightened. Then, without a word, Carell devoured 3 slices in under a minute. "Whoa, slow down," Jason laughed. "You'll choke." Carell ignored him, licking melted cheese off his claws. This is extraordinary. Warm, savory, with balance of texture and flavor. This is not survival food. This is happiness in edible form." Jason grinned. "Yeah, welcome to human cuisine." From that day on, Carell developed a fascination with pizza. He asked endless questions about toppings, ovens, and delivery systems. Jason joked that if Carell ever returned to Trivax, he'd probably introduce his people to the first intergalactic pizza chain. Gaming lessons. The real turning point came with video games. Jason had introduced Carell to gaming earlier, but now it became their regular weekend activity. They played racing games, fighting games, and even cooperative puzzles. At first, Carell treated the games like military simulations, calculating every move with cold precision. But slowly, he began to loosen up. He laughed when Jason made silly mistakes. He shouted in triumph when he won. He even started using Jason's slang, though it sounded hilarious in his deep mechanical voice. "Get wrecked, human." Carell growled after defeating Jason in a fighting game. Jason groaned. "Oh no, you've become a gamer." But deep down, Jason was thrilled. For the first time, Carell wasn't just studying humans. He was enjoying something with them. Learning emotion. One evening, Jason and Carell sat on the couch watching a movie. Jason had picked a classic drama filled with laughter, tragedy, and hope. At first, Carell watched silently, taking notes. But as the story unfolded, Jason noticed his mandibles twitching. His eyes dimmed when the characters suffered, then glowed brighter during moments of triumph. By the end of the film, Carell sat completely still. Jason turned to him. "Well, what did you think?" Carell's voice was quiet, strange. They were not real, yet I felt something. My chest grew heavy when they wept, lighter when they laughed. "This is illogical," Jason smiled. "That's the point. Stories aren't just about logic. They make us feel. That's part of being human." Carell stared at the dark TV screen. "Perhaps feelings are another form of adaptation. A faster way to connect, to decide, to act." Jason chuckled. "Man, you really do turn everything into a science experiment." But Carell didn't laugh. He was deep in thought, as if he had discovered something far more important than he could explain. A test of friendship. One rainy afternoon, Jason and Carell were walking back from class when they saw a group of students struggling. A cart full of supplies had tipped over in the mud, spilling heavy boxes everywhere. Jason hurried forward. "Come on, let's help them." Without hesitation, Carell bent down and lifted 3 boxes at once with his powerful claws. The students gasped in shock, but Jason just grinned. Together, they carried the supplies back to the cart. "Thanks, man," one student said nervously, glancing at Carell. Carell tilted his head. "It is logical. Aid creates strength for the group." Jason patted his armored shoulder. "Close enough. That's called being a good neighbor." For the rest of the walk, Jason noticed Carell was unusually quiet. Finally, the alien asked, "Why did they thank me? I only did what was efficient." "Because," Jason said, "helping others isn't about efficiency. It's about kindness. It makes people feel safe around you." Carell's mandibles clicked softly. Kindness. Another adaptation. A growing reputation word spread quickly around campus about Jason's unusual roommate. At first, people were afraid, but soon stories of Carell helping students, asking funny questions, and even cracking awkward jokes began circulating. One student swore Carell had joined a poetry reading in the library and asked the poet, "Does sadness always rhyme with madness?" Another claimed Carell had beaten the chess club captain in 5 minutes flat. Jason found himself constantly answering questions about his alien roommate. Some people were curious, some jealous, and a few still suspicious. But overall, Carell was slowly becoming accepted. Late one night, Jason scrolled through his social feed and found a video someone had posted. A shaky recording of Carell trying pizza for the first time. The title read, "Watch before deleted, Alien Roommate Loves Human Food." The clip already had thousands of views. Jason groaned. "Great, you're going viral." Carell looked up from his notebook.
"Viral? Am I ill?"
Jason laughed until his sides hurt. A strange realization. Despite all the progress, Carell never stopped asking questions. One evening, as Jason was working on an essay, Carell sat silently on the ceiling, staring at him. Finally, Carell spoke. "Jason Carter, I have concluded something important." Jason didn't look up. "What now?" Carell lowered himself gracefully to the floor. "I came here to study humans, to measure your weaknesses and strengths. But every day I spend here, I realize I am the one being changed." Jason blinked. "Changed how?" Carell tapped his chest. "Your species breeds hope, creativity, resilience. I feel it affecting me, reshaping my thoughts. Perhaps I am becoming less Trivaxian and more human." Jason leaned back in his chair, stunned. "Wow, I don't know what to say." Carell's mandibles twitched in something close to a smile. "Say nothing. Just continue teaching me. For every lesson, I find another reason to respect your kind." Jason nodded slowly. "Deal." And for the first time, Jason realized something too. This wasn't just an experiment anymore. This was the beginning of a friendship that neither human nor Trivaxian could have predicted. The second week of Jason's new life with Carell began the same way the first one had ended, with confusion, strange questions, and more awkward moments than Jason could count. But something had shifted. Carell was no longer just observing Jason like an insect in a glass jar. He was trying, in his own alien way, to understand what it meant to be human, and Jason, though he would never admit it out loud, was starting to find Carell's presence less terrifying and more weirdly entertaining. Small adjustments. Carell's first attempts at living like a human were clumsy at best. One morning, Jason found him standing in front of the bathroom mirror, trying to copy facial expressions. Carell's mandibles twitched as he attempted what might have been a smile. Instead, it looked like he was preparing to bite someone. Jason nearly dropped his toothbrush. What are you doing?" Carell answered seriously. "Humans communicate silently with faces. I must learn this." "Observe, this is happy." Jason laughed. "That looks more like constipation." "Constipation?" Carell asked, tilting his head. Jason shook his head. "Never mind." Another time, Carell tried to cook breakfast by watching an online tutorial. The result was a frying pan full of charred eggs and something that smelled like melted plastic. Jason walked into the kitchen gagging. "What did you do?" Jason coughed. "I followed human instructions exactly," Carell said defensively, his eyes glowing brighter. "The video host said, 'Turn up the heat,' so I activated the highest setting, efficiency." Jason sighed, waving the smoke away. "Dude, cooking isn't about efficiency. It's about balance. You've got to adjust as you go." Carell stared at him thoughtfully, as if Jason had just revealed a great universal truth. The challenge one evening, after a long day of classes, Jason came home to find Carell sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by his notebooks. Alien symbols filled the pages, mixed with rough sketches of humans doing everyday things: eating, laughing, hugging, running. Carell looked up as Jason dropped his backpack onto the couch. "Jason Carter, I have been analyzing." Jason flopped down beside him. "Analyzing what?" "Your people." Carell tapped the notebooks. "At first I believed your strength came from controlled breeding. But I was wrong. It is not your bodies that evolve fastest. It is your behavior." Jason frowned. "What do you mean?" Carell leaned forward, eyes glowing faintly. "Humans do not wait for conditions to be perfect. You adapt instantly. You invent. You improvise. This is why your species survived disasters that would have destroyed others. You do not breed stronger muscles, you breed stronger choices." Jason raised an eyebrow. "That's not the weirdest compliment I've ever gotten." Carell's mandibles clicked softly. "Therefore, I propose an experiment. If I wish to truly understand your people, I must not only observe, I must participate. I must live as you live. Work, rest, socialize, and struggle as a human. Only then will I see how you breed adaptability." Jason groaned. "Wait, you mean you want me to teach you how to be human?" "Yes," Carell said simply. Jason rubbed his temples. "This is either the best idea ever, or the dumbest." First lesson. Food. Jason decided to start small. "Okay," he said the next morning, dragging Carell to the campus cafeteria. "Rule number 1 of being human. Food isn't just survival. It's social. We eat together, we talk, we bond over it, got it?" Carell nodded seriously, recording notes on a tiny floating device that hovered near his shoulder. They stood in line, and Jason grabbed a tray of pancakes and orange juice. Carell stared at the options suspiciously before finally selecting a large bowl of fruit. As they sat down, a group of Jason's classmates joined the table. They were nervous at first, whispering about the towering insectoid alien sitting among them. But Carell surprised everyone by leaning forward and asking, "Please explain, why does syrup improve pancakes?" The students laughed nervously, then began answering. Before long, Carell was bombarding them with questions. Why humans preferred hot coffee in the morning? Why bread came in so many shapes? Why people complained about cafeteria food yet still ate it every day? Jason watched in amazement. For once, Carell wasn't being scary, he was just curious. And his blunt honesty made people laugh instead of run away. By the end of breakfast, one of the students even asked Carell if he wanted to join their study group. Jason grinned. "Well, that's progress. Second lesson. Fun food was one thing. Fun was another. That weekend, Jason dragged Carell into his world of late-night gaming. They sat on the couch with controllers in hand, the TV glowing brightly in the dark room. Objective is simple, Jason explained. You run, you jump, you shoot. Try to survive longer than me. Carell studied the screen intently. At first, his movements were clumsy. He kept pressing the wrong buttons, sending his character walking off cliffs. Jason laughed so hard he nearly fell off the couch. Pathetic, Carell muttered, mandibles clicking in frustration. Don't worry, Jason said between laughs. Nobody's good at first. But 10 minutes later, Carell's alien reflexes kicked in. His eyes glowed brighter as he adapted to the controls. Soon his character was leaping, dodging, and defeating enemies with terrifying precision. Jason stared in disbelief. You're cheating. No way you learned that fast. Carell's mandibles twitched in what looked suspiciously like a grin. Adaptation. The human way, yes? Jason groaned. I've created a monster. A strange bond. The days that followed were filled with more experiments. Jason taught Carell the concept of small talk, which resulted in Carell walking up to strangers and bluntly saying, "Hello, what is your opinion on weather?" He introduced Carell to music, which confused him at first. Why produce organized noise? Carell asked. But after listening to rock music for an hour, he started tapping his claws in rhythm, lost in thought. Slowly, Jason realized something. The more Carell tried to be human, the less alien he seemed. Sure, he still hung from the ceiling at night, still wrote in his strange notebooks, and still scared people with his glowing eyes. But when Carell asked questions, when he laughed awkwardly at jokes, when he got frustrated losing a video game, he wasn't just studying humanity anymore. He was sharing it, the spark of conflict. But not everyone was happy. One afternoon, as Jason and Carell left the library, a group of students blocked their path. "Hey, bug boy," one of them sneered. "Why don't you crawl back to whatever hole you came from?" Jason stepped forward. "Back off, guys," but the group didn't move. "You think this thing is your buddy? It's probably spying on us." "You really trust it?" Jason clenched his fists, ready to fight if he had to. But before he could speak, Carell raised a claw. "I do not wish conflict," Carell said calmly. "But know this, your fear is unnecessary. I came to learn, and I will learn." Something in his voice, deep and steady, made the bullies hesitate. After a tense moment, they muttered insults and walked away. Jason exhaled. "You handled that better than I would have." Carell tilted his head. "Humans fight quickly. But sometimes adaptation means patience." Jason couldn't help but smile. "You're starting to get it." The proposal that night, as rain tapped against the windows, Carell sat once again with his notebooks. Jason lay on the couch half asleep when Carell's voice broke the silence. "Jason Carter," Carell said, "I have reached a conclusion." Jason groaned. "Another one of your theories?" "Yes." Carell's eyes glowed brighter. "I will live fully as a human for the remainder of my stay. Every routine, every struggle, every joy. I will adapt, not as a Trivaxian, but as one of you. Only then will I understand what makes your kind so resilient." Jason sat up, blinking. "You're serious?" "Completely." Jason rubbed his eyes. "Man, this is going to be one wild ride." And for the first time since they had met, Carell actually laughed. A low, buzzing sound that made Jason grin despite himself. Jason Carter was not the kind of student who looked for trouble, but somehow, trouble always found him. He was 22, tall in a clumsy way, with messy brown hair and a permanent look of exhaustion from juggling part-time jobs and college assignments. Most days he lived off instant noodles, secondhand textbooks, and the occasional cup of cheap coffee from the vending machine outside the engineering hall. When the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Program opened applications at his university, Jason didn't think twice. The announcement had been strange enough. Live with an alien student, learn their culture, and represent humanity. He thought it was a joke at first, but then the university confirmed it was real, sponsored by the United Earth Council. Students who applied could host a member of another species right in their dorms or apartments. Jason didn't apply because he was especially brave or curious. He applied because the flyer mentioned a generous monthly stipend. With rent overdue and his roommate having just dropped out, Jason needed money fast. Hosting an alien sounded ridiculous, maybe even terrifying, but money was money. What's the worst that could happen? He thought. 2 weeks later, he got his answer. The arrival it was a rainy evening when Jason received a message from the housing office. Your exchange partner has arrived. Please pick them up at Docking Bay 6. He pulled on a damp hoodie and hurried across campus, muttering to himself, "This is crazy. An actual alien. Not a movie, not a VR game, but the real deal." The docking bay was quieter than usual, only a few security guards watching curiously. A sleek silver transport ship rested on the landing pad, its surface glowing faintly with blue lights. The hatch hissed open, and Jason's life changed forever. Out stepped Carell of Trivax. Carell was nothing like Jason had imagined. He wasn't green or slimy, and he definitely wasn't small. The alien stood nearly 7 feet tall with a body that looked half armored, half organic. His exoskeleton shimmered black and purple under the rain like polished stone. 2 large faceted eyes glowed faintly, and his mandibles clicked softly as he scanned the area. He wore a strange cloak decorated with silver symbols that seemed to shift like liquid. Jason's first instinct was to run. His second was to laugh nervously because the alien was carrying a bag, an ordinary beat-up travel bag like any student. Carell tilted his head. His voice, when it came, was surprisingly calm and deep, almost mechanical. "You are Jason Carter, human male, age 22. "Yes?" Jason blinked. Yeah. "That's me. And you must be Carell?" "Yes?" Carell studied him carefully, mandibles twitching. "You are smaller than I expected." Jason scratched the back of his neck. "Yeah, I get that a lot. First impressions." The walk back to Jason's apartment was awkward. Jason tried to make small talk, but Carell answered every question like it was part of a science exam. "So, how was your trip?" Jason asked. "Efficient. No casualties. Minimal turbulence," Carell replied. "Cool." Jason carried Carell's bag, but it wasn't heavy at all. He noticed Carell moving with a strange, silent grace, his claws tapping lightly on the wet pavement. People stared openly, some even recording on their wristbands. Jason hurried them along, trying to avoid attention. When they finally reached the apartment, Jason unlocked the door with a sigh of relief. The small 2-bedroom unit wasn't much. Cracked paint, old furniture, and a flickering kitchen light, but it was home. Carell stepped inside, scanning everything like a detective. He touched the walls, the couch, even the microwave, humming in a low, vibrating tone. Then, without warning, he climbed onto the ceiling and hung upside down from it like a giant bat. Jason froze. "You okay up there?" "Yes," Carell said. "This is the natural position of rest for my species. Your horizontal furniture is inefficient." Jason shook his head. "Great, my roommate's a ceiling spider." Cultural clash. The first few days were full of misunderstandings. Jason cooked spaghetti one evening, proud of the effort. Carell examined the noodles, sniffed them, and finally asked, "Is this a food or an experimental adhesive?" Jason groaned. "It's food. Just eat it." Carell did, carefully, and then declared, "Strange texture. Acceptable flavor. Too much sodium." Another time, Jason caught Carell recording his sleep patterns. The alien stood silently at the foot of his bed, glowing eyes unblinking. Jason nearly screamed, "What are you doing?" Jason shouted. "Observation," Carell replied. "You twitch frequently. Possible sign of weakness or hidden strength. Must analyze further." Jason pulled the blanket over his head. "Dude, that's creepy." "No watching me sleep." Carell tilted his head. "Humans are very protective of their rest cycle." Noted. The question by the end of the first week, Jason was exhausted. Between classes, work, and explaining basic human customs to Carell, he barely had time to breathe. But Carell, to his credit, seemed genuinely curious. He filled notebook after notebook with strange diagrams and alien symbols. One night, as Jason was microwaving leftover pizza, Carell asked a question that nearly made him choke. "Human Jason," Carell began, his voice serious. "How did your species master breeding?" Jason blinked. What?" "Your records show that you domesticated animals far larger and stronger than yourselves. Horses, cattle, canines. You altered their nature over generations. This is efficient. My people are fascinated. Could humans themselves be? Improve the same way?" Jason dropped the pizza slice back onto the plate. Wait. You mean like breeding humans?" No, that's not how it works here." Carell leaned closer, eyes glowing. "Why not? Is it not logical to produce stronger offspring?" Jason laughed nervously. That's not how we do things. I mean, yeah, people have kids, but it's about families, not experiments. We don't look at each other like livestock. Carell clicked his mandibles, confused. Strange. Yet humans adapt faster than any known species. You expand across environments, survive disasters, invent constantly. Perhaps your strength lies not in your biology, but in your choices. Jason stared at him. For the first time, Carell didn't sound like a cold researcher. He sounded curious, even respectful. Jason smiled weakly. Yeah, we're not perfect, but we try. If you really want to understand humans, you should stop studying me like a bug under a microscope. Try living like us for real. Carell tilted his head. Living like a human? Yeah, Jason said. Eat what we eat, hang out like we do, deal with our chaos. That's how you'll learn. Carell was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. Very well. I will attempt human living. For science, Jason groaned. This is going to be a nightmare. Carell's mandibles twitched in something close to a smile. Perhaps, it will be breeding of a new kind. Jason didn't know what that meant, but deep down he had the strange feeling that his quiet, ordinary life had just ended, and something far bigger had begun.